Hi. In this video we're going to discuss how to use main in your APTs so that you could run your program in Eclipse rather than running it in the APT tester. What I've got here is something that's on the one hand great. I'm correct in 29 out of 30, but on the other hand I don't know what I'm going to do because the one I'm failing on, test case 5, expected 23, got 24. So I've got some kind of off by one bug, and this example is just too complicated for me to figure out. So what I'd like to do is put some print statements to help me debug the program into my code, but those print statements are going to get printed for every example. So let me just illustrate how that might work. So here's my code, and this is not the way I would typically solve the problem, but it's a student solution that's got a bug in it. And what I'm going to do is I think I've got a pretty good idea that the bug might be in this method. I've done a lot of thinking, so I'm going to put a print statement in here that says, well, first I'm going to want to print these counts. So I'm going to, instead of saying if this count is bigger than this, I'm going to store these in two different ints. So this is S count is count of S, and all count is count of all, and then I'm going to say if S count is greater than all count. So I haven't done anything in terms of changing the logic. I've just introduced some variables to hold these values because I want to print them. And here I'm going to print both my counts. I'm going to say fail with S count, all count, on CH. So I'm going to print the character that I'm counting, and I'm going to print the two counts, and I'm going to see what happens. Now what I'd really like to do is just run this in Eclipse. The problem is if I run it over here, which I can easily do, select the file, I'm only working on this one, failed, it's got a lot. So I'm not even sure if that's where I'm supposed to be noticing the bug, but what I'd like to do is use this example. I can see the array starts here, and this is the headlines array, and it looks like it goes to there. So that's my headlines. So what I'm going to do is come back in here and make a main. Java has a launch point, which is always main. It has to look like public static void main with a string array parameter. And I have a headlines array. I can break this at the comma so I can kind of see it all. I've got maybe too many examples here. But when you initialize an array, you have to use a curly brace. So I'm going to just copy and paste this in here using curly braces. And then I'm going to use the messages. I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm just copying and pasting from that. And I know that it has to have curly braces, so I'm going to come over here and select everything inside the square brackets, place it into my Eclipse. Now that's a lot of stuff. So I've got my parameters. Now I need to be able to run this. So I need to be able to call the how many method. So I can't call the how many method from main because main is static. And if I try to say int value is how many headlines messages, I'm going to see that, let's hover again, cannot make a static reference to the non-static method how many. Static means it belongs to the class, not an object. So static belongs to the entire class, anonymous. Whereas how many belongs to an object. I might have many anonymous objects. You'll see, for example, in the molecular ball simulation we talked about, we made a lot of molecular balls. Or in N-body, we made a lot of planets. In this case, this is not a static method, so I need to create an object. So I'll come down here and I'll say, well, this class is called anonymous, so I'll make an object and I call new to create a new object. Anonymous might not be the best variable name, but it gets the point across. And now I can say object how many. And I can even print my result. So now I can run it from inside Eclipse because I've created main, which is the launch point for a Java program, so that I can launch it, run as Java application. And you can see that I got some output here. My result is 21. The nice part here is that I got the results printed for just this single example, which I know is the one it failed on. It turns out that maybe I should put this print statement here, run it again. I can see that I've got a lot of results because I've got a lot of messages. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. It looks like, well, I see something here, W, X, Y, and that makes me focus on, I forgot an equal sign there for the Z. Now when I run it, my result is still 21. I'm going to write it over here. Got 21. Oh, I copied it from the wrong one. I was supposed to copy it from this one. Wow. I found a bug, but it still passed that case with my buggy code. I'm going to try it again. I even copied the wrong stuff, but I still found a bug. Running it. A lot of results that I don't need to print. A lot of print statements. Unfortunately, I have to scroll past them all to find out whether I'm going to pass. That's a lot of print statements. 30 out of 30. I'm going to come back in here, comment out my print statement because I don't want it. Just make sure there's no reason to have all those print statements in there. Choose the file, select it, run it, test it. 30 out of 30. It's time for my special green dance song in my head. Let me just review what I did there. We made a main method. I copied the input from the example. I actually did it wrong, but I still copied it. I used curly braces for arrays. Sometimes you have ints, sometimes you have strings. I created an object. That was the key. In this case, I created an object of type anonymous. I could have called it anon. That might be a better name. And then I invoked the method howmany on the anonymous object. I read that as anon.howmany. And then I printed the result. If I didn't have this main method, so suppose I cut it, I won't be able to run the program. Main method not found in class anonymous. Please define the main method as. So now if I put it back, save it, and run it, I get what I wanted. So creating a main sometimes can help you debug your APT. Enjoy.